Our world and the world of Skyrim may be different in many ways, but that's not to say that they have nothing in common. Both are plagued by war and senseless violence. Both face varying degrees of oppression and injustice. And both contain people trying to overcome whatever hardships life throws in their way, from agonizing grief to denial and everything in between. Our story today is one of a lost soul looking to turn back the clock and recover what she lost to the cruel and unforgiving world in which she lives. It begins, ironically enough, on a bright and sunny day during a stroll through the woods of eastern Skyrim. As we travel along the path, we eventually come to an arc-shaped stone structure on our left. After approaching it, we quickly realize that there are several more of these structures, one after another, forming a pathway of sorts for us to follow. We find ourselves in an open space surrounded by massive boulders and rocky ledges. This is the entrance to Ansilvund Excavation. Before we even have a chance to explore, we get attacked by a conjurer who summons a frost atronach in a desperate attempt to take us down. After looting the conjurer, we can take a quick glimpse at the roaring fire he had set up in the middle of the open space, which has several slabs of meat hanging over it and a mud crab cooking inside of a pot. There's a small table near the fire pit with some fruit on it, as well as a book titled Of Fiori and Holger. In her 29th summer of life, Fiori the Huntress met the warlord Holger on the field of battle. None remember what they fought over, for their love to come was so great it overshadowed all rivalries or disputes. They fought to a standstill as their followers looked on, till her sword broke his axe and his shield dulled her sword, and all could see that they were equals. As the eagle finds its mate, so too did Fiori find hers in Holger, and a time of peace came to the clans of the forest. But as the summer's warmth gave way to winter's chill, so too would this peace pass. But the snake came and bit Holger, its venom seeping deep into the wound. A wail greeted Fiori's view as she came over the snow-covered mountains to the coast. She obtained an elixir from the Akavir and returned to the forest in haste. Though Holger could smell the winds of Sovngarde, she gave him the elixir and he was cured in an instant. But the snake bit Fiori as she poured the last drop into Holger's mouth, and fatigued from her journey, she joined the ancestors immediately. Holger's grief was such that he built a tomb, and upon completion took his own life that he might rejoin her. Saddened, we close the book. What a tragic end to an otherwise beautiful love story. With our curiosity piqued, we can make our way into Ansilvund Excavation. The first passageway we find ourselves in leads us to believe that this place was used for mining at one point. There's a table on our left with a pair of iron boots, 2 leather helmets, a couple of pickaxes, lanterns, and a blacksmith's draught. Following the walkway east, we enter a chamber with a large pillar surrounded by multiple levels of scaffolding. Looks like we are right, miners were definitely doing some work down here. As we go to step through the shadows, we are confronted by a giant draugr. We can climb up a ramp to get to the scaffolding and then loop around the pillar, where we find yet another dimly lit passageway. There's a small ramp leading up to a platform with a novice-locked chest, but the only loot that we find is a few pieces of gold. Hopping off of the platform and continuing east, we come to another small chamber. There's a shovel and a pickaxe next to a lit candle to the south, but before we have a chance to do any more exploring, a small army of necromancers and draugrs come rushing into the room. After walking under what appears to be an old wooden bridge and equipping our shields, a novice storm mage comes running around the corner. After killing him, we notice a chair sitting in a pool of oil. Maybe this is just my hyperactive imagination at work, but could it be that this is where some poor soul was going to be tied down and sacrificed? Granted, it's a rather gruesome thought, but it's possible. The narrow path continues to twist and turn to the east, eventually bringing us to another cobweb-covered room with a wooden walkway that leads up to a second level. There are some draugrs lying on a table that we can loot, as well as an apprentice-locked chest with some more loot inside. We can see another room on the other side of a short passageway, but there's some kind of trap hanging down from the ceiling. Good thing we noticed it before it was too late. But just seconds later...
I am Lu'ah Al-Skaven. Who are you to disrupt my work? Begone, or I will add you to my army of the dead.
The game then instructs us to find and kill Lu'ah Al-Skaven, which frankly leaves us with more questions than answers. Who is Lu'ah Al-Skaven? What business does she have here in Ansilvund? Why does she want us to turn around and go back to where we came from? Let's keep moving forward in search of answers. After walking up a ramp to the east and looting some more draugrs, we enter another chamber and confront a clan of mages whose magic proves to be no match for our dragonbone sword. In the center of the room are a couple of chairs next to a large fire pit, and sitting in the southwestern corner of the room is an arcane enchanter. This would explain all of the random objects found around the room. The mages were using them to create magical items and enchantments. We move forward through the fog, hovering just inches above the ground. The walls shake, and a mysterious blue mist awakens the surrounding draugrs from their graves.
Rise from your graves to defeat this worm!
Lu'ah Al-Skaven seems to be throwing everything she's got at us. What exactly is she preventing us from finding? As we step into another dark chamber, the floor below our feet lifts us into the air. It's not until we jump back down that we realize that we had just walked straight into a trap. We've better watch our step from this point forward. Against the wall to the north is a table with a petty soul gem and some embalming tools, which makes sense considering that we're making our way through an ancient burial site. We can then head up some stairs into another open room and unlock an apprentice-locked chest with some loot inside. Turning around, we can look through a hole in some kind of wooden structure to see a draugr swinging his sword against the wall. What on earth is he doing? Thinking that I could use stealth to take it out, I equipped my dragonbone bow, crouched down, and took a shot. And then another. Third time's the charm. I was never very good at archery in Skyrim, so I figured it would be best to switch back to my sword and shield. On the lower level, there's a small table with a few potions and a lesser soul gem, as well as the entrance to yet another passageway that winds and twists even deeper into the depths of Ansilvund. There's a tripwire at the end of the passageway, which I chose to activate instead of simply jumping over just to see what would happen. Yeah, that would have ended badly. Rounding the corner, we come to another elaborate chamber with multiple levels. There's a draugr standing in place facing away from us. Maybe we can try using stealth one more time. We slowly approach the undead warrior. Closer. Closer. Oh, come on! We take down the Draugr, but then turn to see a Conjurer and a Flame Atronach looking for a fight. We manage to cut down the Flame Atronach, but foolishly forget about the little gift that they leave for their opponents after death. Well, that one hurt. Thankfully, we're able to find a couple of healing potions on a table to the north. Also on the table is another copy of the book of Fiori and Holger, as well as Lu'ah's journal. 25 years I have grieved for my husband and sought revenge against the Empire for his death. I have researched the magics to return his spirit to a body, and something about the story of Fiori and Holger has drawn me here. Holger would make the perfect vessel to bring my Sael back to life. I have managed to raise the dead here and use them as laborers to clear the way to the main burial hall. Something about the methods used by the ancient Nords has kept them incredibly well preserved. Would that these Stormcloaks had half their sense. We could have used them to push the elves right off the continent and formed a new state to combat the Empire. And now, when I am so close, a war breaks out. The sleeping bear of Skyrim, who would not come to aid us in Hammerfell, awakens now that the Empire has abandoned them as well. They think they know suffering at the hands of the Empire. They know nothing. I would see both the Empire and these sons of Skyrim into oblivion myself. Well, that explains just about everything. Lu'ah is here looking for the tomb of Holger, whose body she intends on using as a vessel to bring back her deceased husband, Sael. But we can't let her disturb Holger's final resting place just for her own selfish needs. We need to find her and stop her before it's too late. There's a lever in the middle of the room, but when we go to pull it, we get bombarded by arrows. On the ledge above the rocky wall that the arrows fired out of, we find 4 pillars, each of which has an animal carved into it. It's then that we realize that the lever we pulled just moments ago isn't part of another trap. It's part of a puzzle. We look around the room, scanning each and every inch in hopes of finding some kind of clue, but there's nothing here, just more cobwebs and thick undergrowth. Snake, whale, eagle, where have we heard this before? Wait a minute, weren't all of those animals mentioned in the book of Fiori and Holger? Maybe we have to turn the pillars so that they match the same order that the animals were mentioned in inside of the book. We rush over to the copy resting on the table and quickly scan the pages for a second time. As the eagle finds its mates, okay, so there's eagle, number 1. But the snake came and bit Holger, snake is number 2. A whale greeted Fiori's view as she came over the snow, whale must be the 3rd pillar. But the snake bit Fiori as she poured the last drop. Snake is the last animal in the pattern. Eagle, snake, whale, snake. Eagle, snake, whale, snake. Let's try it out. Eagle. Snake. Whale. Snake. Now we can go back to pull the lever and nothing happens. We pull it again and then a 3rd time and still nothing happens. But the arrows are no longer firing at us, so we must have done something right. Perhaps the lever activates a door that's located someplace else. It turns out that all we had to do was turn around, where we find a catwalk leading across to a doorway. This must be the gate that we just opened by solving the puzzle and pulling the lever. After entering a small dark room and looting a chest to the south, we can pass through a set of double doors into the Ansilvund burial chambers. Creeping past the graves and the skeletons resting inside of them, we turn a corner and see several large axes pulled back against the walls. But even though I tried to be as careful as possible not to trigger one of them, I still ended up with a poison arrow in my side. Just a few small steps later, I stepped on another booby-trapped pressure plate, sending the arrow soaring through the air for a second time. In my defense, the trap was hard to see underneath the roots that stretch out across the floor. Moving extra slowly this time, we managed to get past the hanging axes without so much as another scratch. The path continues to the south, but first we can pick an adept-locked gate to gain access to an expert-locked chest. Apparently Bethesda thinks that lockpicks grow on trees. We're heavily rewarded once we finally get the chest unlocked, though. In my playthrough, I got 285 gold, a scroll of harmony, an enchanted elven mace, a staff of ice spikes, and some other loot of lesser value. With our lockpicks nearly depleted, we can begin making our way south down the hallway, but another axe trap stops us in our tracks. I admit there were a number of ways I could have easily gotten past this, but I just decided to run through and hope for the best. I only got hit once, not bad. After taking out a few draugrs, we can look around to get a sense of our surroundings. This appears to be the largest chamber we have been in yet, with giant steel cages resting on stone platforms above our head. There are stairs leading up to these platforms, but let's explore the ground floor first. On the far side of the room are 4 tombs evenly spaced from one another, as well as a pedestal against the wall. On top of the pedestal is the Ansilvund key, but when we go to take it,
I shall have vengeance for the death of my husband. Rise!
we strike down 2, but the remaining draugrs try to make a quick getaway. We chase them into the hallway with the swinging axes, and then let the traps do the rest. Well, that worked out swimmingly. On top of a pedestal along the southwestern wall, we find 2920, Sun's Dawn, Volume 2. A rare find that gives us a boost to our illusion level progress. But just like with the Ansilvund key, picking up the book activates a trap, and we get impaled with more arrows. Yeah, I admit I walked right into that one. Heading up the stairs to the second level, we can pick an adept-locked chest with some gold inside, and then use the Ansilvund key to unlock one of the cages we saw from the ground floor just moments ago. Inside is an unlocked chest with some loot, and after walking across a short catwalk, we can open some urns for some more loot. On our left is a shelf with some bowls, plates, and other objects, and next to the shelf is a door. Inside, we find a skeleton. Are these the remains of some poor soul who became trapped inside this small room and died before ever seeing the light of day again? Or was he a prisoner? Because there's nothing else behind these doors other than a cold stone wall, I believe that the latter is more likely. We can use the Ansilvund key to unlock another one of the cages, and after crossing through, we find a large wooden door. As we slowly move through the darkness, we can hear the sound of metal colliding with stone. It's another restless draugr. Just a few more steps to the north, and we find ourselves pitted against a conjurer who kindly comes down from an upper level to greet us. There is a shallow pool of water in the center of the room, and a wooden ramp winding upwards to a second level. Across a catwalk is another wooden door, and passing through it, we find ourselves on the upper level of the room with the cages we were in earlier. A draugr bursts through the set of doors on the other side of the catwalk. Distracted, I accidentally stepped on another trap, but there wasn't much time to assess the situation. I had to take out the draugr and get to the other side as quickly as possible. Nothing like some traps, an undead warrior, and a necromancer to really get the blood flowing. Just up ahead, we find ourselves in a small room filled with fog. Turning to the west, we see 2 thrones. Before we have a chance to examine the thrones further, the walls shake and the entire room darkens. We see the blue mist soar through the air, and then they attack.
I could not raise him, but I will raise an army to avenge his defilement.
After looting the Draugrs, we can follow the path until we finally arrive at a set of large iron doors. Inside is an enormous chamber, with several tall pillars and 2 sets of stairs leading up to a platform. Directly across from us on the far side of the room is what looks to be an altar, with dozens of lit candles on top of it. And then suddenly, she appears.
They burned his body before I could raise him. It should have been returned to me. You will not stop me from killing those who wage this pointless war.
We're attacked by several enemies at once, including the corpses of Holger and Fiori, which are being controlled by none other than Lu'ah herself. With Lu'ah Al-Skaven finally dead, the spirits of Holger and Fiori are finally free.
Thank you for releasing us from her spell.
Now we can rest in peace once again. Come, Fiori, my love.
Take this with our gratitude.
As a token of Holger and Fiori's gratitude, we are given the Ghostblade, which has a base damage of 23 and incidentally is one of the lightest weapons in the game, beaten only by the knife and fork. The Ghostblade's enchantment also deals 3 extra points of damage, ignoring armor. And while it's certainly not the best one-handed weapon in the game, it's still not bad at all. We can loot Lu'ah's body, on which we find Lu'ah's key, Robes of Major Destruction, which makes destruction spells cost 17% less to cast, and causes magicka to regenerate 50% faster, a pair of boots, and a Staff of the Familiar, which can summon a familiar for up to a minute. Heading up the stairs on our right, if we're facing the altar, we find a master-locked iron door, which we can open thanks to Lu'ah's key. Inside is Lu'ah's living quarters, complete with a bed, a desk with some potions resting on top, and an alchemy lab. Also on the desk is a note titled Imperial Condolences. It is with the deepest regret that I must inform you of the death of your husband, Sail. He laid down his life in battle, helping retake the Imperial City from the Aldmeri. He showed great courage in his final hour, and his sacrifice will not be in vain. All considered him a man of high moral standing and a shining example of the best the Empire has to offer. In this hour of your grief, please take solace in the fact that he gave up his life protecting the Empire which he held so dear. As we know, Lu'ah Al-Skaven didn't take this news very well at all. Before she even had a chance to request that her husband's body be sent back to her, the Empire burned it. That's why she needed to use Holger's body as a vessel for bringing back her long-lost lover. There's a shelf in the western corner of the room with a few soul gems, some enchanted robes and other loot, and in the center of the room sits an unlocked chest with some gold and valuable enchanted items inside. After looting a couple of burial urns, we can exit through a door to the northwest to return to Ansilvund Excavation. we make our way through a dark, narrow tunnel and up a spiral staircase, where we can again use Lu'ah's key to pass through a gate. We jump down off a platform, and after a few twists and turns, we find ourselves back in the room with the scaffolding that we explored in the beginning of our journey. At its core, I think that this story is an examination of the different ways in which human beings deal with grief. Whereas Holger chose to deal with the death of his lover by accepting her fate and her new out-of-worldly existence, Lu'ah Al-Skaven was never able to accept the fact that her husband was gone. Holger acted selflessly by taking his own life to be with Fiore again, while Lu'ah acted selfishly by enslaving the souls of the dead in an attempt to bring her husband back to life. Lu'ah Al-Skaven may have been inspired by the tale of Holger and Fiore, but she completely lost herself when she lost her lover, and ended up doing the exact opposite of what Holger did when he lost his. Dealing with the death of a loved one is never easy. If it were, then chances are it was never real love to begin with. What counts is how we deal with that death, and what we do in the months and years that follow. We can either grieve and let our sadness completely take us over like a poison, or we can grieve and then find peace. Lu'ah Al-Skaven did the former. Holger did the latter. But I'd love to know what you think, folks. Do you think that Lu'ah completely lost herself over the death of her husband? Or was she just looking for a way to be with him again as Holger did with Fiore? What do you think this story teaches us about dealing with grief? Are there some valuable lessons here? Or was this just another plain, ordinary quest? Let me know in the comments below. If you liked this video, consider clicking on the thumbs up icon below to show your support. Or better yet, subscribe to my channel so that you can stay up to date on all of my latest content. I post new videos on Skyrim every single Friday, ladies and gentlemen, so be sure to check back next week for more Skyrim lore, commentary, and analysis. For those who are fans of the Fallout franchise, I also put out lore videos on Fallout 4 every single Tuesday, so be sure to check those out as well. But that's all for now, folks. Have a great week, and I'll see you next time.